Alright, let's talk about Six Samurai a bit. This is the general skeleton for the standard Six Samurai deck that most people run to combat the meta. The general deck strategy is basically get either legendary Shi En or Natura Beast on the field first turn and then ride its effect and back row to victory. Unfortunately, as first play turns go, Six Samurai don't have that strong of a play, for while Shi En and Natura Beast are both strong monsters due to their negation effects, in a meta world where monster effects rule, the overall utility is clearly not optimized. Another concern with this deck is the overall consistency, for if the deck cannot drop a first turn Shi En or Natura Beast, it is difficult sledding due to the low monster count, the dead draw possibilities of asceticism, and the inability to break an established opponent's board, which really hurts this deck when it goes second. Another concern is the ever-present threat of side-decked kaijus removing Shi En or Beast from the field with ease, eliminating all of the resources that were just dumped into that play. It's much more difficult in this era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Than the past to just sit on one super powerful monster. The final major concern I have with this type of build is that the current meta is rather high attack point based. In Blue Eyes, Cosmos, Metaphos, even Burning Abyss can still put up a 2500 defense point Dante and a 2800 defense point Beatrice. And a 2500 attack point Shi En or a 2200 attack point Natura Beast can't really get over those monsters. With all of these issues, it's no surprise that Six Samurai do nothing in the current meta. However, if it does not accomplish anything of merit, why do people continue to run this type of build? It could be argued that this build is the best Six Samurai can accomplish, with the state of their current support and the current ban list taking away their most valuable card. Granted, it is definitely true that the lack of gateway is meaningful for this deck. However, what happens when we do not immediately accept that this current build is the best Six Samurai can do? How does the deck change? Well, anyone who has seen some sampling of my deck builds understands that I value consistency more than max minning when it comes to playing. Basically, I want to be able to do some form of play rather than I'm going to try to maximize my probability to get my best play, but it also basically maximizes my probability of bricking. First, synchro decks are in a interesting position in the game right now because of the resource investment demanded by synchro monsters, yet a single Solemn card ruins the entire play, especially because since the synchro monster is not properly summoned, it cannot be revived from the graveyard. Speedroids can get around this problem because they have so much quality searching and recovery, as well as the ability to run Twin Twister with little detriment. In the very near future, Yang Zings will be able to get around this problem because 9 branches is pretty much a broken counter trap. However, Six Samurais have no immediate way to effectively get around this problem, but recently they've gotten a new trick up their sleeve, so to speak. For the current meta, I believe that Six Samurai need to run some more monsters. Not a lot more, but some more, because of one of the biggest problems when this deck goes second is the inability to break the opponent's established board, largely because summon negators, neutralizing, Natura Beasts, and Shi En plays, among other things. Unfortunately, this archetype is not well structured for Twin Twister, because it does not have quality graveyard plays from the discard. Thus, dropping cards is not something that this deck can shrug off easily, because the main deck monsters typically cannot hold the field very effectively. It needs to use its resources better. Thereby, I believe the deck needs to move beyond the strategy of summon Beast or Legendary Shi En, and then protect with everything you've got, because it's just not good enough. With this philosophy in mind, I drop one of the 3 Kaizens, for I do not value it as much as other players do. But I keep the one Zanji, for while I'm not a fan of it as much as others, its destruction effect is critical at times, and there's another card in this deck with which it combos very nicely with. Also, I dropped the one Grandmaster and the one copy of Elder, because Natura Beast summoning is not a significant priority anymore for this build, and Elder is just not really that great of a card. If there was a better Six Samurai level 2 tuner, or almost in a sense just a better level 2 warrior tuner, because I'm not a huge fan of TG Striker in this type of meta, I would drop at least one copy of Kagemusha, for outside of Musha being a tuner, it really isn't that good of a card in this meta, because it frequently is too difficult to get on the field consistently in defense position, thereby making it easy to destroy by battle, and most effects that target can then be used to remove the monster Musha would have protected during the main phase 2, losing the opponent very little. For the additional new monsters, I run one of the 2 best monster tech cards in the game, in my opinion, that is not a hand trap. The newly released SPYRAL Super Agent. Super Agent is a pretty strong card in general and a very nice card for this deck. It's a 1900 level 4 warrior monster that can attempt to innately special summon itself by guessing the card type of the top card of the opponent's deck, which realistically at worst has about a 40-ish% chance of success, and at best, if you know what type of deck your opponent's running and you've seen what type of plays they've made, has about an 80+% chance of success. Even if the summons is not successful, you receive valuable information about the next card your opponent is going to draw, because clearly your play strategy is going to be different if you know your opponent's going to draw a Raigeki versus if you know they're going to draw a tin goldfish. If it is successfully special summoned, though, you can destroy an opponent's back row card. Basically, Super Agent is kind of a solemn heat-seeking missile of sorts for this deck, protecting a future synchro summons. I still run the 1 copy of Shien's Advisor from my original build, for despite reinforcement of the army going to 1, the shutdown ability of Advisor is still high quality, especially because of all of the homogeneous decks that still circulate through the meta, and the hybrid decks are rather weak when the ability to special summon and attack with one of those 2 types is taken away. I now run 1 copy of Yaichi, which in some respects I think is mandatory in 6 Samurai decks now as another tool to eliminate Solemn back row. Either your opponent activates the Solemn card to negate and destroy Yaichi, or Yaichi destroys it, making synchro summoning again more probable. Finally, I run 1 copy of Valkyrian Knight as another solid 1900 attack point monster that can magnet attacks, and if it's destroyed by battle, it can grab level 5 or higher warrior monster from the graveyard by banishing itself and another warrior. For the rest of the monsters, Kageki stays at 3. Some players run it at 2 copies, which I don't really understand. Yes, it can be Solemn, Veiler, or Breakthrough skilled, but its special summon effect is definitely high enough quality to be worthy of 3 copies, and especially to provide the swarming element that 6 Samurai decks kind of need. For the spells, I drop all 3 copies of Asceticism, for again, my build strategy focuses more on consistency than trying to get a first turn going for Shi En or Beast, and the loss of Asceticism does not hurt first turn Shi En that much. It does hurt first turn Beast a little, but first turn Beast isn't super important in this type of build. Outside of the first turn summon strategy, Asceticism is rather dead in the general deck. I also drop 1 Soul Charge because I think 6 Samurais have better archetype specific revival cards, and receiving the battle phase is of critical importance. For the new spells, I feel it's important to run Solidarity in 6 Samurai, because the attack power of the archetype in general is so abysmal relative to the attack power of the decks you're going to be facing, either as meta decks or rogue decks. So 2 copies of Solidarity. Also, I believe running 2 copies of Dark Hole is important as a means to help dislodge opponents' fields, and sets up high damage plays through the archetype-specific 6 Samurai revival cards. Also, I tech 1 copy of Creature Swap, for it can really come through in the right situation, swapping a bad monster for one of your opponent's more important monsters. Finally, the last spell spot is kind of up for grabs. One could run 1 copy of Asceticism, or 1 copy of Cunning of the 6 Samurai. Cunning is a rather underrated card, for any 6 Samurai can become any other 6 Samurai in the graveyard, even a properly summoned Shi En. However, Cunning is not great in multiple, so only 1 copy is really valuable. Overall, though, I choose to run, not surprisingly in some respects, the 1 copy of Upstart Goblin. Finally, for the traps, I keep the Solemn Brigade, 3 strike and the 1 warning, because they are still the best means to protect Shien from monster effects, as well as neutralize pendulum summoning, along with 1 copy of Double-Edged Sword, which is still one of the best revival cards in the game, because its so-called side effect is almost always irrelevant. And finally, 1 copy of Vanity's Emptiness, for it is rather useful with both Shien on the field and when Solidarity is on the field, because you're pumping up your main deck monsters. I remove all of the face-down reaction traps, so Floodgate, Trap Hole, and Quaking Mirror Forces are gone, and the 1 Magatama and Bottomless Trap Hole, which some players run and some do not. I add 1 copy of Backs to the Wall, as the coup de grace card for life point cost is again somewhat irrelevant. Play it and the duel should end very soon in your favor, unless you get remarkably unlucky. Finally, 3 copies of Safe Zone. Safe Zone is one of the most annoying and underrated cards in the game because it frequently produces a favorable field condition for multiple turns. In this deck, Safe Zone is actually rather nasty because it supports Zanji's Monster Destruction effect, Yaichi's Back Row Destruction effect, and can provide significant levels of protection for Shi En. Due to solidarity, the extra deck is primarily composed of warrior monsters. It is as followed. 1 Trishula, Dragon of the Ice Barrier, because Trishula is Trishula, and when you activate Trishula, it's a situation where you're pretty much setting yourself up to win the game, or your situation is so bleak that solidarity is not really going to help you. 1 Crimson Blader, 1 Colossal Fighter, 1 Goyo Guardian, 1 Stardust Charge Warrior, 2 Legendary 6 Samurai Shien, 1 Natura Beast, 1 number S39 Utopia the Lightning, 1 number 39 Utopia, 1 Blade Armor Ninja, 1 Ga Cowboy, 1 Phantom Knights of Break Sword, 1 MX Saber Invoker, and 1 number 47 Nightmare Shark, because when you're summoning Nightmare Shark, it's basically, I'm going to attack directly and end the game. In the end, I'm not going to say by any stretch of the imagination that this 6 Samurai deck is meta, but the current, more popular build of 6 Samurai is certainly not getting it done with respects to competitiveness. Therefore, some new things need to be tried with regards to this deck. Granted, another option is to simply throw in a Pendulum engine, most notably the Performapal engine, but in those types of hybrids, the 6 Samurai portion of the deck largely becomes kind of an afterthought, and the Pendulum is pretty much doing all the work, and in some sense it could almost be viewed as quasi-inefficient. Why not just run a pure Pendulum deck then? This deck attempts to produce other means to achieve victory without relying on Shi En or Beast, especially when this deck goes second, because going first is definitely the preference of the current meta. Well, that's my 6 Samurai deck. Thank you for your attention and your time. I'm out.